During westward expansion in 1803, France offered a piece of land for $15 million, and Thomas Jefferson bought it from Napoleon. Louisiana Purchase doubled the size of the United States, and it gave the U.S. the key port of New Orleans, which made trading more easy. It included the states Arkansas, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. It included parts of Minnesota, Louisiana, west of the Mississippi River. It included New Orleans, big parts of north and northeastern New Mexico. France had to sell Louisiana territory to pay off war debt.
Explaining the political roots of Manifest Destiny is fairly simple. The American people believed that it was their God-given mission to extend their system of democracy. Americans hoped to establish a democratic republic that reached the Pacific. The economic roots of Manifest Destiny are easy to explain. Many Americans believed their future prosperity depended on the land and wealth to be gained from westward expansion. The success of farmers in Texas and the discovery of gold in California encouraged this belief. The social roots of Manifest Destiny are easy to identify. Americans admired the rugged pioneers who advanced into the Southwest, and they romanticized the West in multiple ways: songs, paintings, and much, much more.
The U.S.-Mexican War unfolded after an argument on where the U.S.-Mexican border would be. One cause of the U.S.-American War is that there was an argument on where the border should be, either on the Rio Grande River or the Nueces River. An effect is that Polk marched U.S. troops to Mexico City and 1,700 Americans died. After the war, Mexico gave up California, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and parts of Colorado as the Mexican cession, or the Treaty of Guadalupe.
Areas that were acquired to form the United States were the Louisiana Purchase of Florida, Gadsden, and Oregon. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 was when France offered to sell its land from west of Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains, which ended up doubling the size of the United States. And now the Purchase of Florida in 1819 was when Spain sought to sell Florida. Americans negotiated the purchase of Florida from Spain in 1819 for $15 million. The Oregon Territory was purchased from Great Britain in 1818. The Gadsden Purchase of 1853 completed the United States expansion of the Southwest. This piece of territory was purchased from Mexico for $10 million.
The Republican Party had a fairly good point of view politically. The critics of the Kansas-Nebraska Act formed a new political party, which is known as the Republican Party. Republicans agreed to let slavery continue in the South, but opposed any further expansion of slavery. Abolitionists were an interest group that fought against slavery. Abolitionists were people who believed that slavery was morally wrong, and they wanted to end it. Abolitionist leaders were men and women of high moral purpose and courage who sought to make the issue of slavery a focus of national politics.
The economic differences among different regions of the U.S. were that the North was more wealthier than the Southern states. The Northern states were more wealthier than the Southern because of their industrialization. The North had factory-made products and were more higher quality products to sell. The Southern states, however, owned slaves and their products were handmade and lower quality, so they sell less products than the North.
Constitutional issues arising over the issues over states' rights. John C. Calhoun has stated in 1828 that a state had the right to nullify a federal law within its borders, or even to secede from the Union if it wished. South Carolina threatened to secede in 1832, but was stopped by President Andrew Jackson's threat of force. The principle led several southern states to secede from the Union in 1860 through 1861. The Tariff of 1828, also known as the Tariff of Abominations. John C. Calhoun secretly published the exposition and protest an essay pronouncing the tariff unconstitutional. Calhoun argued that each state had the right to nullify unconstitutional federal law. South Carolina threatened to leave America. South Carolina thought that the tax was too high. They put Calhoun's nullification to a test. A state convention passed the law, the Ordinance of Nullifications. This was important because it made sure that all states had some rights just like these rights.
The nullification crisis has many people involved, and a lot happened in it. Many things happened due to the Tax of Abominations. Vice President John C. Calhoun quit his job and retreated to his state, South Carolina, to help them out due to this. Because of this, Henry Clay took over as president and proposed a compromise by reduction in taxes over the next 10 years. There were three compromises between 1820 and 1854. The Missouri Compromise prohibited slavery in the most part of the Louisiana Purchase above the 3630 line. The Compromise of 1850 was after the U.S.-Mexican War. The same issues came up whether the new land from the Mexican cession would be slave or free states. The Kansas-Nebraska Act unraveled in 1854. Senator Stephen Douglas of Illinois proposed the new doctrine of popular sovereignty, where people in the territory would decide for themselves whether the area should be have slavery or be free. In 1854, Congress passed the law allowing settlers in 3 territories to decide if their states or territories would be a slave territory, a free territory, or a territory open to slavery.
The contributions of significant political, social, and military leaders of the United States like Frederick Douglass were things like anti-slavery writings and speeches. One of these were being on July 4th of 1852, Frederick Douglass gave a speech in Rochester, New York. In this speech, Douglass spoke on topics of anti-slavery. One quote being, "Am I to argue that it is wrong to make men bruises, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to lash their flesh with a whip, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to break up their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience to their masters."
Racial, ethnic, and religious groups that settled in the United States and their reasons for immigration. The Irish potato famine led to a massive increase in Irish immigration to the United States. Irish immigrants faced hardships that began with their journey across the Atlantic on overcrowded ships. Diseases spread quickly among passengers. Most Irish immigrants were farmers and ended up making it into big cities like New York and Philadelphia. In the 1830s, a large number of Germans migrated to the U.S. Some Germans migrated because of political reasons. Some came for economic reasons. German immigrants faced hardships too because they only knew German and had a hard time communicating with others. This is important because it led to a widespread of cultures in America. The historical development of the abolitionist movement. Abolitionists believed that slavery was morally wrong and wanted to end it. Most abolitionists were widely disrespected by Southerners because that was their way of life. Mobs sometimes attacked the abolitionists, even in the North. In 1833, the British Empire completely abolished slavery. By 1838, more than 1,350 groups existed in America, with over 250,000 members. There was a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe depicted the evils of slavery. This was important because they led to people like Martin Luther King and eventually ended slavery.